You've found out you need to take insulin, and you want to know more about it. This program will introduce you to how insulin works, how to use your insulin safely, and how to cope with hypoglycemia and sick days.
Even a person who has type 2 diabetes, who is not insulin using at the moment, one day in their lifetime may be insulin using.
When I take my insulin, I don't even think about it. I just do it. It's become a natural part of my everyday existence.
Having to take insulin doesn't mean your diabetes has gotten worse. And it doesn't mean your diabetes is more serious than the diabetes of someone who takes pills, or of someone who takes no medication at all. Your diabetes care team may recommend you use insulin as part of your plan to manage your diabetes, to help keep your blood glucose in your target range, and help you avoid the long-term complications of diabetes. Diabetes affects the way your body uses the food you eat. Most of the food you eat changes to glucose, a form of sugar. Glucose enters the bloodstream, causing your blood glucose level to rise. As your blood glucose rises, the pancreas releases insulin. Insulin works like a key to open the cells and let glucose enter. The glucose is used for energy or stored for later use. In people who don't have diabetes, the body maintains a balance of glucose and insulin in the bloodstream by releasing the right amount of insulin at the right time. But when you have diabetes, your body can't keep your blood glucose in this healthy range without help. The exact causes of type 2 diabetes vary from person to person, but it may be because your body does not make enough insulin, or it doesn't use insulin properly. To keep your blood glucose in a healthy range, you may be prescribed insulin. There are several different types of insulin used to manage diabetes. They are rapid-acting, short-acting, intermediate-acting, and long-acting. They are grouped into one of these types based on their onset, which is how quickly they begin to work to lower your blood glucose level, their peak, which is the time they are working the hardest to lower your blood glucose, and their duration, which is how long they work to lower your blood glucose.
Now, do you know how long the Lantus works? How long it's in your body?
Yeah, 24 hours.
Well, that's right. The Lantus is in your body for 24 hours. And also, do you know how long the Humalog acts?
Oh, the Humalog acts immediately.
It's important to know which kind of insulin you use and understand how it works. Rapid-acting insulins include Lispro, Aspart, and Glulisine. Please note that these are the generic names of these medications. You're probably more familiar with the brand names. These will appear on screen as we list the generic names. Their onset begins very quickly, usually within 15 minutes. These insulins peak at 30 minutes to 1.5 hours, and their duration is a total of 3 to 4 hours. Since these insulins begin to lower your blood glucose almost immediately, you must be ready to begin eating your meal before you take it. Otherwise, your blood glucose could drop too low. The only type of short-acting insulin is regular. Its onset is in about 30 minutes to an hour after injection. Its peak is at 2 to 3 hours, and its duration is 3 to 6 hours. The only intermediate-acting insulin is NPH. Its onset is in about 2 to 4 hours. Its peak at 4 to 10 hours. And its duration is 10 to 18 hours. There are 2 long-acting insulins. One is Dedamir. Detomir's onset is 1 to 2 hours. Its peak is 2 to 12 hours, and its duration is up to 24 hours. The other long-acting insulin is Glargine. Its onset happens in a little more than an hour, and it works at the same level for up to 24 hours. This means that unlike other insulins, Glargine doesn't peak or have a time when it is working its hardest to lower your blood glucose. It's important to take insulin Glargine at the same time every day. Most people take it at bedtime. Many factors, including the type of diabetes you have, your age, your weight, and your lifestyle, will help you and your diabetes care team determine which insulin or insulins will work best to help you achieve your blood glucose goals. Sometimes this means taking more than one insulin. Taking more than one insulin is part of an insulin routine that helps to even out your blood glucose level throughout the day. You may take a long-acting insulin to provide a steady dose of insulin throughout the day, and inject a shorter-acting insulin just before each meal. Some people inject 2 insulins in the same syringe at the same time, a shorter-acting and a longer-acting insulin. These are called mixed doses and may be mixed by hand, or they may come pre-mixed. Be aware, however, that long-acting insulins cannot be mixed with other insulins. Remember, the goal of using insulin is to keep your blood glucose in your target range throughout the day. This may help you avoid complications from diabetes in the future. The more you know about your insulins, the more likely you will use them safely and effectively to help you achieve your blood glucose goals. Recording your blood glucose at specific times will help you figure out when your insulins begin to work, when they work hardest, and for how long. Other medications you are taking may affect your insulin, so you should make a list of all the medications you take, prescription and over-the-counter, and show it to your diabetes care team to make sure your insulin is working properly. Before using your insulin, check to make sure it's the right type and brand, and that you know your proper dose. Store any extra injectable insulin you aren't currently using in your refrigerator. The insulin you are currently using does not have to be refrigerated, but must be used within 28 days after it is opened. Cold insulin may sting when injected, so let your insulin warm to room temperature before you use it. Never store any insulin in a place that is too hot, or where your insulin could freeze, like inside your car. And never use insulin from a bottle that looks frosted. NPH and some pre-mixed insulins are cloudy and need to be mixed gently before use. If a cloudy insulin looks yellowish or clumped, it should not be used. If your clear insulin appears cloudy or discolored, it should not be used. Never use insulin if the expiration date that is printed on the bottle has already passed. Always keep a spare bottle, pen, or pen cartridge on hand. Check your supplies, including syringes, on a weekly basis to make sure you have enough for at least 2 weeks, in case you can't go out because of bad weather or illness. Safe and effective use of insulin also includes recognizing and treating hypoglycemia and knowing how to handle sick days when they arise. Using insulin can cause your blood glucose to fall too low. If you skip a meal, exercise more than usual, or your medication dose is too large, your blood glucose can fall too low. To avoid hypoglycemia, you need to be careful to keep your insulin in balance with the other parts of your management plan. If your blood glucose does fall too low, your body doesn't get the energy it needs to function. Symptoms you might experience include headache, weakness, a cold sweat or clammy feeling, shakiness, hunger, irritability, and dizziness. If you ignore it, hypoglycemia can get worse, and you can pass out. You should discuss the best way to deal with hypoglycemia with your diabetes care team, but here are some general guidelines. If you experience any symptoms of hypoglycemia, check your blood glucose. If it's below 70 milligrams per deciliter, or if you feel too shaky, confused, or weak to check it, follow this procedure. Eat or drink something containing 15 grams of carbohydrate. That could be 4 to 6 ounces of fruit juice or regular soda, 3 to 4 glucose tablets, 5 to 7 lifesavers, or 8 ounces of low-fat milk. Rest for 15 minutes. Recheck your glucose level. If it hasn't risen above 80 milligrams per deciliter, or if you still feel symptoms, have 15 more grams of carbohydrate. Once your blood glucose is in a safe range, you need to make sure it doesn't drop again in the next few hours. If your next meal is scheduled within 30 minutes, eat it right away. If it's more than 30 minutes away, have a snack of carbohydrate and protein. If you experience frequent episodes of hypoglycemia or have passed out, tell your diabetes care team. These often signal that changes are needed with some part of your management plan.
The problem areas were you were having some lows, right? You were having lows.
Ask if glucagon is right for you.
So glucagon is a hormone that's made by the body.
Glucagon is an injectable medication to be used when a person with diabetes has lost consciousness because of hypoglycemia. The injection works by helping the liver produce glucose immediately, which then enters the bloodstream to raise the blood glucose level. Since glucagon requires a prescription, talk with your diabetes care team to see if you need to keep glucagon on hand. Finally, be aware that drinking alcohol when you use insulin may put you at risk for low blood glucose. You should discuss alcohol use with your diabetes care team to learn how to use it safely, and remember to eat if you do choose to drink. Sometimes changes in your daily routine are unavoidable, like when you're sick. An illness like a cold or the flu can raise your blood glucose. High blood glucose levels can complicate your illness and slow your recovery. It's important to continue taking your insulin if you become sick. However, you may need to make some adjustments, perhaps even increasing your insulin. Knowing how to manage your diabetes and your insulin when you're sick can help you better control your blood glucose levels. So before you get sick, prepare a sick day plan with your diabetes care team. On days when you are sick, let your diabetes care team know if you have difficulty taking your insulin as directed. Notice any side effects or unusual symptoms, or think it is not working as it should. Take the time now, before you're sick, to talk to your diabetes care team about insulin and illness. This will help make managing your diabetes when you have a cold or the flu a little easier. Insulin is an important part of managing your diabetes. Understand how your insulin works and learn how to use it safely, especially when your self-care is complicated by hypoglycemia or sick days.
I think being a diabetic now is a little easier because you have the types of insulin that can accommodate your lifestyles now. Okay? And I find that a benefit.
Physically, I felt like a new person. I mean, I had so much more energy. Now when a weekend comes, I go see my grandchildren. They come to see me. I go visit my friends. I go out to dinner. It's just a whole new ball game.
I just thank God that, I can do something about it and control it. Whereas if I had some other illnesses, you ain't got no control over it.